So a statement against interest is telling you something that if I was completely self-interested, I would not admit. Like that last answer was a little bit rambly and confusing. But if you have the latter and you can, if you have the illustration, it's much easier to explain. So it's owning or admitting something that isn't in your interest. It might hurt you, right? An apology is a statement against interest in many cases. The reason that statements against interest can be so powerful is that it's the fastest way in the research. It's one of the fastest ways to build trust between people, because the other person thinks, well, I guess they must be being honest, because otherwise they wouldn't say that. We talked earlier about not just taking your internal voice that's focused on blame and what you're right about and dumping it into the conversation. The shift from I'm right to why do we see this differently should also be accompanied by a shift from blame to what we call joint contribution. And joint contribution assumes, look, we each did things, and they might have been totally reasonable things. Nobody did something wrong. But we each did things or failed to do some things that got us here. And it doesn't have to be 50-50, but if I'm willing to own and be accountable for my contributions to this problem, that makes it more likely that you'll be willing to do that as well. And so a statement against interest is I might own my contribution up front. Look, I think, Tim, we should have talked about this a while ago, and I should have brought it up earlier because it's been bothering me for a while. So I apologize for that. But I wanted to talk about fill in the blank. Owning my part of it up front, which is often avoiding or delaying a conversation, is a really common contribution to a problem that is festering. Signals, this isn't about blaming. This is just about understanding what's going on and trying to make it better.
Are there other examples you might be able to share, in doing homework for this conversation? You mentioned apologies. I mean, certainly there are good and bad apologies.
Yes,
helpful
there
and
are.
unhelpful apologies. And I actually might want to come back to that. This is something I'm very much trying to get better at. I don't think I'm the worst in the world, but I'm definitely not winning any gold medals at the moment.
Well, can we dig into that?
Yeah, sure.
Now you're sorry you brought it up, aren't you? Tell me more about how you think about apologies and what makes one good or bad, effective or actually ineffective.
Well, obviously this is timely for me. So I think part of the reason I've been looking forward to asking you about this is that, coming back to the ladder of inference, I think that perhaps I'm not paying attention to the right elements of apologies, because my self-assessment is that my apologies are pretty good.
But my apologies are amazing.
They're fucking amazing. I didn't want to be too
you should be much more
strong.
Appreciative of how good that apology was.
Right. I'd like to thank the Academy. So I think I'm honestly simply not seeing what, in this case, my partner is seeing. And what I've noticed is that content almost doesn't matter, or the content matters, but if my tone is implying I don't have a lot of time for this, and is of a certain intensity or volume, the words really just don't matter. Yeah. So there is some just regulation that I think needs training on my side.
So the message is not that you're sorry, it's that, will this apology make this end?
I think probably. That's probably right. I'm like, okay, I see this could drag on for a while.
Yeah.
I'm willing to suspend the conversation of who is right and who is wrong, and I'm willing to apologize if this just terminates.
Means we can be done.
If we can just move on to something else and stop this particular conversation. So,
that's such a great insight.
Yeah, I'm not totally knuckle dragger about it. Like I have, you would think after reading all these books and so on that I would be acing this, but I think that also I often jump from I think my girlfriend wants me to feel how she feels
Mm.
more than she wants me to understand in some analytical way what is causing what I view, or what maybe we both view as an issue, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just generally don't operate with that as my primary lens.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that contribute. Sometimes I ace it, right? Sometimes the apology works, but it's not consistent. So I'm looking for some rules, some guidelines, some language, anything that can help me get out of the remedial class and into the more consistent.
Oh golly,
normal class.
we are all in the remedial class, honestly. I was just sort of chuckling to myself because your frame was the apology works.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And that suddenly made me think, oh, that's actually probably a piece of it, which is if I'm apologizing for my own purposes, to accomplish my own purposes, maybe that's antithetical to an apology.
Yeah.
Because we could probably make a really cool list of the different things that make an apology less than apologetic or less than satisfying. So one might be, it's really, can this be over yet?
Yeah.
Another that I often make the mistake of doing myself is, look, I'm sorry you felt that way.
Right.
Which is basically, you shouldn't have felt that way. And what I did was completely reasonable, so the problem is still you.
Yeah.
And your oversensitivity. I think that part of what makes an apology meaningful is that you are genuine in owning something that you've contributed to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that you're acknowledging the impact that it had on them. So that third piece of the what happened story is about why are you acting this way? And the advice, the shift in that category is from, I know why you're doing what you're doing, or the flaws in your character that are problematic, to separating intentions and impact, which is that it's quite possible, and most of the time we had good intentions, or we had no intention, we just weren't thinking about it, and it had a bad impact. And I think that when someone feels we owe them an apology, maybe they want two things. Maybe they want us to sort of own and take responsibility for whatever we contributed to the problem. And they also want us to really see and care about the impact that it had on them, like to really fully understand it, rather than to explain it away or continue to believe that it was their problem. And maybe those are the two key elements to an effective apology.